Hey guys, it's Brandon here. Just wanted to make a review and installation video on this Kangaroos Team turbo exhaust manifold for the BMW M20 engine. This fits on an 885 cylinder head. This particular cylinder head I have here is a AMC remanufactured one, but I did have it on my original BMW 885 head as well. The fitment is perfect. The car did have runtime on the original cylinder head with this manifold in this condition. I didn't have any leaks, any exhaust leaks or anything like that. The manifold is made out of cast iron, and it is a true twin scroll manifold. It comes with an optional delete plate here for where you can mount a external wastegate. My turbo is an HX35W from Wholeset. And that is an internally wastegated turbo. So I have the delete plate on here. I do want to make an installation video on this, which I'm going to do raw on the head here while it's off the car. It's a lot easier to show. I did install this the first time, however, on my original 885 head while the engine and head was in the car. And it's completely easy and possible to do that as well. So the first thing you're going to want to do is install your exhaust manifold gaskets here. These I've been running for a little while now. I got them off FCP Euro. You can also get them with head rebuild kits from Turner Motorsport, FCP Euro, any of those outlets. They're pretty common. So the bolts you're going to want to use to install the manifold to the head are M8 by 1.25 thread pitch. When installing this manifold, it's tempting to just slide it right on like this and then start threading the nuts in. However, a lot of them, because of how it was cast, you can't put the nut in and then thread it all the way around. This one here, you can't even fit on. So what you're gonna wanna do are thread on any of the nuts that you can, just to the top, and then you're gonna wanna lift up on the manifold itself and thread the nuts on that you couldn't get before as far down as you can go. And then once you do that for all of them, you can tighten them all down with a wrench. I also want to mention that when I did this the first time, I used a lock washer. I'm not sure if it's necessary. I couldn't really find anything online about it, but it worked fine for my application the first time I had this on, and I'm going to be doing it again. So the only nuts you're going to be able to pre-thread on here are the rear 4 on the bottom, and on the top, these front 2. Then what you're going to want to do is pull the manifold up to those bolts you threaded on a little bit, like that. Start threading on the new bolt, and then repeat that process for the rest until you can clamp everything down. All right, so now I got all the bolts started by just lifting the manifold and doing each one at a time. I started on the bottom here and worked from the front to the back of the head, then moved up working from the back to the front. They're all just sitting on the top now, and now you can go through and tighten each one down. Now this is important. You're gonna wanna start with cylinder number 2, the bottom bolt here. As you can see, this one, even though it started to be threaded on, once the manifold is sitting on the head, it hits it and you can't turn it. So you're gonna wanna go and lift the head up. That's why I kept all of these not tightened down yet. Lift the head up to the rest of the bolts and then tighten this one down first. All the rest of them, once they have been started like this, you can tighten down normally. So now I got this one tightened down. Again, cylinder number 2, the bottom bolt here. You're gonna wanna start with that one. Once you get that one tightened down, it's really easy from there. The rest go on normally. If any of them are gonna give you a problem, it's gonna be this one, the starting one. The casting is really tight to the nut. That's why it is nice using a lock washer. You can see if it's all the way on or not and tight. So the M8 by 1.25 thread pitch bolt is a 13 millimeter wrench. I was going until the bolt got tight and I couldn't tighten it down anymore. I don't know of a torque spec for these, but frankly, it would be almost impossible to put a torque wrench on these bolts anyway. As tight as you can go, the better. All right, so now I got all these bolts tightened down and the manifold is installed onto the head. I do want to go over now how to make studs for this, as from the factory. It comes with threads for an M10 by 1.5 thread pitch bolt. And from having this on the car before and mounting the turbo up, it's really close to the firewall here. I actually had to dent in a little bit to mount my turbo up, and I'll dry mount the turbo on here, but it's a real pain to mount and get the bolts in between the turbine housing and getting a wrench in there and spinning it around. So I'm gonna make studs to stick out of here so the turbo can just plop right down on it, and I'll just screw the bolt on from the top. So I do want to show how much of a pain it is to mount the turbo on here and just use regular bolts. I was using these, like I said, they're M10 by 1.5 thread pitch to fit the factory threading in here. And I was using a lock washer as well. These bolts are 1.25 inches tall, and the clearance was really tight. So I'll dry mount the turbo on now and show you what I was talking about. So I just put a couple bolts in, 2 out of the 4, to show how this turbo mounts. This is a pretty good angle of how it mounts to the head. It's nice and close to the head, which I like. It does have a lot of room in there. It's low profile. But to mount and get these bolts on here, you could see this one's actually one of the easier ones. Threading a bolt in here and then getting the wrench on there, and also just handling this turbo while this is mounted in the car is a huge pain. And then doing this bottom bolt's pretty bad, but the worst one by far is right in there. To mount that one up, it takes probably a good 15 minutes just to get the threads just set in right, and then it's just a huge pain. So I'm gonna be making studs for it, and I'll go over what to use for that. It's gonna be just some bolts and a grinder. To make these studs, you're only gonna need 4 bolts. They're gonna be 2-inch bolts by their M10 by the 1.5 thread pitch. And what you're gonna wanna do is, I already marked it out here. You can thread them in, and if you cut just the top off, you'll have 7/8 showing on all of them here. That's perfect for my turbo application, which is, again, the whole set HX35W. For other ones, you might need to go a little longer. You could even go a little shorter, but 7/8 sticking out is usually pretty good, and it should work just fine for what I'm doing. So all I'm gonna do is take these bolts to the grinder, chop off the head, and then put them in with some Loctite, just like how I assembled the head studs on this AMC head here. So I cut the head of the bolt off of these, and then I test threaded them in there without any Loctite. I got them all the way down, and they stick out about 3/4 inch, which should be perfect for my turbo. Now I'm just gonna put some Loctite on the very end of these, thread them in there with the 2-nut method, which is where you put 2 nuts on here, tighten them together, and then use one of them to thread in. And then I'm gonna test fit my turbo, and if everything goes well, we're all set. So I have Loctite on the studs now, and I screwed those 2 nuts together. I just tightened them together. And then, as you can see, when you twist one of them, the whole screw tightens in. I'm just gonna do that until they're hand tight, and then test fit the turbo again. So here's the turbo on. I'm pretty happy with how they came out there. I think the 3/4 inch sticking out was perfect. Here's how it sits on the car there. There are those nuts again. And here's how it sits on the head. I had to bend in the shielding here. And I do want to note that I've had this on the car before, and I had to change the spark plugs, and cylinder 1 is pretty tough to get to. It is possible, but you're gonna need a thin-walled socket and some flex couplings. Overall, I like this manifold with how it fits on the head and sits in the car. I'll have it linked down in the description for anybody that wants to check it out. And thank you for watching.